Okay, let's unpack this. We've all had those fleeting digital conversations, yeah. Quick, how are you? Maybe you share a meme. But what happens when that simple check-in, sort of unfolds into this surprisingly deep exchange of memories, self-perception, just a whole lot of nostalgia? That's what we're diving into today. You brought us this really fascinating collection of text messages and photos, aptly titled Messages Across Time, a Digital Reunion. It's this candid, often pretty funny back and forth between two people who've known each other, well, for ages.
What's fascinating here is how these seemingly casual digital breadcrumbs, like, the ones you've shared, they allow us to not only revisit shared history,
Mm-hmm.
but also to witness the surprising ways our past selves are remembered. And sometimes, yeah, hilariously reimagined by others, even within these really long-standing relationships.
Right.
So our mission with this deep dive into your material is really to extract those potent nuggets of insight into how we present ourselves, how memory kind of plays its tricks, and the rich, often humorous disconnects that can pop up when those, deeply personal memories are revisited.
Okay, so this digital reunion you've given us, it kicks off with one person sending an old acquaintance a message, basically just checking in. And immediately, like right away, we're hit with this striking pattern. The very first message they send is a picture of themselves from way back yonder, right? In work gear, in a garden. And their immediate self-commentary on this photo is pretty telling. They say, yes, that's me, in my work gear looking absolutely, well, words can't describe what I look like. Oh, yes, dork. This was many years ago, by the way. What is this initial framing, this immediate self-deprecation when they see an old image? What does that tell us?
Oh, it's quite revealing, isn't it? The first instinct is to immediately frame their past self, almost defensively, as a dork. This isn't just about the photo itself. It's like a portal, a gateway to a past self that they're clearly still processing. It really illustrates how our internal narrative of our past self, often fraught with self-criticism, frequently clashes with what might be a more neutral or maybe even positive external memory.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that our own self-perception isn't always, the full story.
And this self-critical thing, it isn't a one-off, is it? It's immediately reinforced in the second message. They sort of double down on the visual critique. They send another picture, this time sitting down on a grass verge on a hot summer day, smiling that kind of shit shirt jeans. And again, the self-talk, hey, look, don't I look like a dork with ginger hair? Holy fucking shit, a ginger headache. Yep, totally fuck-up colored hair. They're really fixated on the hair and this dork label. Makes you wonder, like, how many of us have that dork photo from our past that still kind of haunts us?
That intense focus on hair color and perceived appearance, specifically calling ginger hair a ginger headache, points to a really strong, maybe negative past association with how they looked back then. It highlights how visual cues from our past can trigger very specific and sometimes pretty harsh self-judgments even years later. That a classic example, really, of how deeply embedded some of these self-perceptions can be, even when the reality, might have been very different.
Then, okay, the third message. We see a picture of them in bed. They clarify, no, I'm not naked. I'm a polite person most of the time, which is kind of funny. But then add, can't remember when or where this was taken. Looks like a better hairstyle, but not sure about the color. Now, what's intriguing is that your source material reveals the sender privately knew the context of that photo. So there's this layer of deliberate public forgetfulness. What might be the underlying reason someone chooses to sort of feign ignorance about a shared memory, even playfully, when they see an image like this? Yeah, that internal note is absolutely crucial.
Right.
Because it reveals a layer of self-awareness, a performance of forgetfulness maybe, or perhaps a playful withholding of information.
Right.
It also underscores how our memories of ourselves, even with photographic evidence right there, can be filtered or even, selectively presented. It could be a way to open up a dialogue, maybe invite the other person to fill in the blanks. Or it could just be a subconscious desire to reframe their past in a particular light. And that casual tone, polite person most of the time, that also adds a personal, somewhat quirky touch, doesn't it? It softens the potential vulnerability of the image.
Okay, so after this series of self-reflective and sometimes, yeah, pretty self-deprecating photos, the conversation shifts a bit with the fourth message. The sender sends a more straightforward, anyway, just checking in to see how's you doing type of thing, hope you are okay in that. They even throw in a reference to the Truman Show, which is a fun detail, kind of highlights their personality. But interestingly, your source material includes an internal thought from the sender. I don't think she will tell me how's it going. What does this tell us about the sort of underlying dynamic of this long-standing relationship, this anticipation of a lack of candor?
Well, this is where we start to see the nuances, the real texture of a long-term relationship dynamic playing out. The sender's internal monologue reveals an expectation of privacy, maybe, or guardedness from the receiver. It's almost as if they anticipate a certain level of emotional distance, or at least, not a full disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests a history of interaction where perhaps direct emotional vulnerability wasn't always the norm. Or maybe a protective instinct, not wanting to burden the other person.
And this sense of guardedness from the sender is immediately echoed in their fifth message, right? They say, internally, I don't think I'll tell her everything. She will panic like fuck, which is quite blunt. And then externally, okay before you ask me or think about it, or just maybe you don't. Well, I can leave to imagination. Well, let's say everything is short of okay. This is fascinating. They're hinting at not being entirely okay, but also explicitly stating they won't fully reveal it. It's almost like a partial confession.
That's a really keen observation, yeah. The self-censorship, even while acknowledging underlying issues, it's a common thread in how we communicate within established relationships.
Yeah.
There's a shared history there that might lead to an assumption, right or wrong, about how the other person would react. And that shapes what we choose to reveal. The phrase, everything is short of okay, is a wonderfully understated way of conveying struggle without diving into specifics. It's a classic example of implied communication. It really shows that delicate balance between maintaining a connection and protecting one's own emotional space, especially, with someone who will panic like fuck.
Right. Finally, before we get to the replies, the sixth message from the sender talks about a significant change in appearance. Oh, forgot. I'm rocking the white hair look now, the best color I ever had.
Right.
And your notes reveal another internal thought. Yes, over time I've gone from being a red gingerhead to being white-haired. So it seems they're much happier with their current look, which contrasts sharply with those earlier ginger headache comments. They even add, I sent a lot of fucking message, as an internal thought, kind of acknowledging their own prolific communication style here.
That evolution in self-perception regarding their hair color is quite significant, actually. It suggests a journey of acceptance, perhaps even, preference, for the natural aging process. It contrasts so sharply with their earlier negative framing of their younger ginger self. Yeah, totally.
It's a moment of current self-affirmation, presented almost as an afterthought, but it acts as this quiet counterpoint to their initial self-deprecating remarks. It reminds us that our self-image isn't static, right? And often it improves with time and self-acceptance.
Okay, now, after all that introspection and vulnerability from the sender, we get to the pivotal moment. How does the other person, who'd known them for ages, react to this whole digital archaeology dig? The first reply from the receiver is pretty direct. So you finally caught up with me then on the hair color ascent. I loved your hair. Looking back at those old photos, one taken by me as you're in my bed, you were very cute indeed. Better to have been cute once than never been cute at all. You know I'm riffing on that well-known quote, better to have been loved than never to have been loved at all. And the sender's internal thought on this, as you've noted. Shit, she remembered that picture. Hey, don't know what she means by cute. Honestly, I don't. What's striking here is this immediate contrast in perspectives, isn't it? It's absolutely stark. Yes, this is exactly where we see that memory divergence phenomenon in full effect. The receiver not only fondly remembers the sender's past hair color, the very thing the sender was just disparaging.
Right, the ginger headache.
Exactly. But she also recalls the intimate context of the bed picture, which the sender had earlier claimed, or at least implied, they didn't remember. Furthermore, her description of the sender as very cute indeed, and that playful riff on the famous quote, it completely reframes the sender's self-deprecating view of their past self as a dork.
Completely.
It beautifully illustrates how others can hold a much more affectionate and often, frankly, more objective memory of us than we hold of ourselves. Relationships can act like external hard drives for our past selves, often storing a kinder or less biased version than our own internal one.
That's a really crucial point. The second reply is a bit more general. Thanks to the old photos, it's weird to think how young we were. And the sender's internal reaction, as you shared, what? She's lost me with that.
Yeah.
There's a slight disconnect here, isn't there? A sort of misfire.
Indeed, there is. This is a moment where the receiver's broader nostalgic reflection, wow, we were young, kind of contrasts with the sender's more specific, appearance-focused self-critique. The idea of how young we were is a universal sentiment, sure, but for the sender, it seems to miss the specific point they were trying to make about their past appearance, their perceived dorkiness. It just highlights how even shared moments can be remembered through very different lenses, focusing on different details or, evoking different emotions for each person.
Then the third reply. I have one old photo of me somewhere. I'll try and find it. The sender internally responds. Okay, here we go. Building anticipation. And indeed, the fourth reply delivers the photo. The sender's internal thought is pretty effusive. Holy fuck, she looks amazing. Beautiful. You know how the rest goes.
Mm.
The photo is sent with the caption, found one, think I was about 39-ish A. But then the fifth reply, a quick correction. 30-ish that should be. And the sender notes internally, as you observed, or should I say, she must be getting forgetful.
Huh. Yes, this sequence is delightful, isn't it? It adds another layer to this whole memory exploration. It shows the receiver's willingness to participate, to jump into this shared memory lane, but also that slight self-correction on her age, which the sender humorously picks up on. And the sender's unreserved internal admiration for the receiver's photo, amazing, beautiful. It provides a different facet to their often self-deprecating external persona we saw earlier.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a moment of genuine admiration that contrasts really sharply with the sender's own self-critique when looking at their own photos. It demonstrates that while we might be harsh on ourselves, we can still hold others in very high regard.
And finally, the receiver's last couple of messages really wrap up this unexpected exchange. First, we weren't bad when we were young. The sender internally notes, as you've captured. Don't know what she means by that. Then the receiver adds, didn't know it then, of course. Well, I knew you were all right. And the sender's final internal note is just this perfect encapsulation of their blend of confusion and playfulness. Sorry, definitely got no idea what she means by that message. Actually, I do. Nope, still got no idea.
Yeah, those final exchanges from the receiver, we weren't bad when we were young, and I knew you were all right. They encapsulate this reflective, almost appreciative sentiment about their shared past. It's like a subtle realization that perhaps they didn't fully appreciate their youth or their connection at the time.
Right, looking back with different eyes.
Exactly. And the senders continued, self-aware confusion. Nope, still got no idea. It just underscores the ongoing disconnect between the two perspectives, even as they're revisiting this shared history. And a lovely example of how memories can be both shared and uniquely experienced at the same time. And what makes this exchange particularly significant, as your source material notes, is that this receiver usually sends very short messages, very brief, which highlights how unusual and probably meaningful this extended reflective dialogue truly was for them. It wasn't just a quick check-in, it was a rare deep dive into a shared past.
So if we connect all this to the bigger picture, what we've just explored in this deep dive into your, seemingly simple exchange of messages is actually this rich tapestry. It shows how memory, self-perception, and the evolving nature of digital relationships truly play out. It's far more than just a chat, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, far more. This deep dive into your provided material really highlighted how digital communication can serve as this powerful, almost spontaneous tool for revisiting shared history. It prompted both incredibly affectionate recollections and, as we saw, some, truly humorous misunderstandings. And it forces us to confront the difference between our own internal narrative, who we thought we were, who we think we are, versus how others, especially those who've known us for decades, actually remember us. It's a vivid demonstration of memory's subjective nature and the enduring, sometimes really surprising, impact of our past selves on our present relationships.
And as you reflect on this digital reunion you shared with us, it really leaves us with this thought to ponder, doesn't it? When you look back at your own digital breadcrumbs, the messages, photos, posts from years ago, what story do they actually tell? And how much of that story aligns with your memory versus the memories of others who were there with you? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.